Hello everyone and welcome to my Bachelor Nation 24 channel, I hope. Everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Golden Bachelorette Joan Vassos had to relearn love. The first ever Golden Bachelorette, Joan Vassos, admitted that she had to relearn how to be in love. She was brokenhearted when her husband of over 30 years passed away. That being said, there was a lot to digest when she was faced with 24 men vying for her heart. So how did she handle it, and moreover, how did she open her heart back up? Keep reading for more details. Joan Vassos had to relearn love. When Joan Vassos lost the love of her life in 2021, it was the worst devastation imaginable. John was her lifeline for 32 years, and the thought of ever dating again clearly was not on her mind. She then went on to be a contestant on the premiere season of The Golden Bachelor with Jerry Turner. The two had an amazing connection, and they did look amazing together. However, Joan's family came first and her daughter needed her, so she left the possibility of love behind. He ended up marrying Theresa Nist, but they split after just 3 months. Now, Joan is the first Golden Bachelorette and men are head over heels for her. It is the 5th week of the show, and she has some really strong connections with the remaining gents. Some of them are Jordan Heller, Jonathan Roan, and Chalk Chapel. They have swept her off of her feet, especially Chalk. This has been hard for Joan as she still has John on her mind, but as she told Us Weekly, she had to relearn how to fall in love. It was not easy, and that was where the show's psychiatrist came in handy. Joan Vassos did not shy away from getting help to deal with her emotions regarding her late husband. Admittedly, she felt like she was being unfaithful. Many times, she thought she was ready to go all in, and then she found herself holding back, upping and leaving. Joan Vassos genuinely liked all of the men that came onto the show. Therefore, every rose ceremony, she wanted to leave the series. It broke her to have to hurt anyone, but many of the men have said that the friendships they made in the mansion have made it well worth it. As for what she was looking for, the Golden Bachelorette needed a fixer. That was what John was, and she saw that in Chalk Chapel. She learned a lot about him and how he did all he could to help his late wife when she fell ill. Joan's journey is not over just yet, and she still has hometown visits. She will meet her suitors' families and learn even more about them. Until then, she is trying to live in the moment while honoring herself and John. Finally, Joan is proving that age is just a number when it comes to love. She is breaking the stigma and hopefully finding her happy ending. For Joan Vassos, stepping onto the Golden Bachelorette wasn't just about finding romance again. It was about rediscovering herself after decades of a love she thought would last forever. Long before the sparkling gowns, candlelit dates, and red roses of reality TV, Joan's life was stitched together by a quieter kind of love. A steady, unglamorous devotion that grew through shared morning coffees, children's soccer games, and the whispered "I love yous" at the end of long, hard days. When she lost her husband, it wasn't just her partner that disappeared. It was as if an entire language, the language of love, had been erased from her life. And yet, here she was, years later, standing beneath the fairy lights of a bachelor mansion, nervously smoothing the hem of her silver dress, wondering if her heart even remembered how to speak. "I had to relearn everything," Joan admitted during a quiet moment in the interview chair, her voice both vulnerable and quietly brave. How to flirt, how to trust, how to hope. For the first few nights, Joan felt like an imposter, like someone who had accidentally wandered into a younger woman's game. The men who arrived were charming, sure, handsome, some of them devastatingly so. They brought roses, handwritten poems, even a few off-key serenades. But every time someone flashed her a confident smile or offered her their hand, Joan's instincts wavered. Was it safe to hope? Could she truly open herself again without shattering? Learning to be seen again. Joan confessed that part of her relearning journey was allowing herself to be seen again, not as a widow or a mother or a caretaker, but as a vibrant woman with dreams, flaws, desires, and fears. There's a kind of invisibility that settles over women after a certain age, Joan reflected. You get so good at being strong for everyone else that you forget how to be soft for yourself. But the mansion had its own strange magic, surrounded by suitors who wanted to know her favorite song, or what made her belly laugh, or what scared her late at night. Joan began to feel the first stirrings of something tender and electric. She began to remember who she was before the grief, before the walls. I realized, she said with a smile, that maybe the best parts of me weren't in the past. Maybe they were still unfolding, facing the ghosts. Of course, relearning love wasn't a linear journey. Some nights, Joan wrestled with guilt. How could she offer her heart to someone new without betraying the man who once held it so completely? During a vulnerable group date, where each contestant was asked to share a letter they'd written to their younger selves, Joan broke down in tears. She read aloud about the girl she once was, full of impossible dreams and unbreakable optimism, and how life had both honored and betrayed those dreams. One of the men, a kind-eyed former firefighter named Mark, gently took her hand afterward and said, "You're not replacing anyone, Joan. You're expanding your heart. It's allowed to hold more than one great love." That moment was a turning point. Joan realized that love wasn't a finite resource, but an ever-growing garden. There was room for grief and joy, sorrow and new beginnings. "I stopped trying to erase the past," Joan said. "Instead, I made space for the future. The wild, messy art of falling again." And fall she did, awkwardly, sweetly, sometimes with laughter and sometimes with doubt. She learned how thrilling it could feel to hold hands on a stroll through a vineyard, to lock eyes across a dance floor, to receive a note slipped under her door that simply said, "Thinking of you." She also learned how terrifying it was to risk being vulnerable again. Some connections fizzled. Some men left her heart bruised in ways she hadn't expected. But through it all, Joan stayed open. There was no script to follow this time, no promises etched in stone. Only the wild, messy art of feeling it all. The good, the bad, the breathtaking. The scariest thing, she confessed in a private journal entry the cameras later captured, is also the most exciting. "I don't know how this ends. I'm just trusting myself to walk into the unknown." Finding love, finding Joan. By the time the final rose ceremony approached, Joan wasn't the same woman who had stepped nervously out of the limo on night one. She was radiant, yes, but not in the way makeup artists or stylists might conjure. It was something deeper, a kind of unburdened light that came from knowing she was choosing love for herself, not to please anyone else or fit a mold. And when she finally stood across from the man she realized she couldn't imagine her future without, whether it was Mark or someone else, she didn't just whisper yes to him. She whispered yes to herself. To the woman who had learned that love isn't just a second chance, it's a lifelong skill, one that can be relearned, reimagined, and rewritten, no matter how many chapters your story has already seen. "Love isn't about returning to who you were before," Joan said, holding back happy tears. "It's about becoming someone new, someone even more beautiful, because of everything you've lived through." And as the final rose was given, the sun setting behind her in a wash of gold, Joan Vassos knew one thing for certain. She hadn't just relearned how to love someone else. She had relearned how to love herself. Would you also like me to write a version that sounds more like an official Golden Bachelorette blog post or magazine article? One half.